Hello, I'm Dr. Fred Sanborn. I'm a professor of psychology at North Carolina Wesleyan, and I was asked to make a short video by the Brave campaign on bullying. I'm happy to do that, but I should tell you that I'm not a therapist or a clinical psychologist, but I am a psychologist who studies social and developmental psychology. And developmental psychology is how people change throughout their lives. So today I thought I would discuss some of the things that we know about how bullying affects people throughout their lifespan. Um, Today, I'll also be talking a little bit about a few research studies that have been done on bullying from childhood, adolescence, and into adulthood. The first thing I'd like to do is make sure we're clear on what bullying means or how it's defined. In psychology, we often think about bullying as related to aggression. So, aggression, as defined by social psychologists, is the physical or verbal behavior that is intended to hurt someone. So physical, using my body, or verbal, using my words to hurt somebody and doing it on purpose, intentionally. But bullying goes a little bit beyond just aggression because bullying is aggression combined with an imbalance of power or status. So the bully often feels or is perceived as bigger, more popular, or more powerful than the victim. And this imbalance of power is going to be important to kind of think about and remember as I talk about this research today. But also, I just want you to know that that's, of course, related to discrimination, which I think the Brave campaign may also be addressing. So bullying has been studied a great deal in childhood and adolescence. Some things we know from some of this research is that it's fairly common. So about 35% of children, elementary school age children, say that they have been bullied and or have bullied another child. So they bullied and or have been bullied, which means there are some bullies who are bullied by someone and then turn around and bully another child. So 35% it's not half, but it's still significant. It's about a third of kids say that they have experiences with bullying. Other research tells us that in childhood, about 75% of child bullies and their victims are in the same school classroom. However, as I'm sure you know, it goes beyond the classroom. So cyberbullying, or bullying online via social media or text, is also increasingly common. And in fact, one study found that it's twice as common now as face-to-face bullying. There's been a number of longitudinal studies done on bullying as well. If you don't know, longitudinal studies are sort of the gold standard of research in developmental psychology, and longitudinal studies follow people over a period of time to observe the changes in them from one time to another. Sometimes these longitudinal studies take place over a long period of time, so sometimes years. So one such longitudinal study looked at kids who were bullied at age 6 and came back and examined those same kids at age 12 and 13. And kids who had been bullied at age 6, the study found, were much more likely to have gained an excess amount of weight when they were 12 and 13 compared to kids who were not bullied. A different longitudinal study found that those who were bullied between the ages of 4 and 10 were more likely to think about committing suicide at age 11 than kids who had not been bullied. Yet another study found that those who had been bullied in childhood and adolescence, by the time they got to their 20s, and compared to people who had not been bullied, were at an increased risk of anxiety, depression, panic disorder, and suicide. In addition to childhood and adolescence, bullying has been studied in adulthood as well. And one of the interesting findings is that the effects of childhood bullying can linger into adulthood. So in a study in which college-age adults are asked about experiencing bullying between the ages of 11 and 18, the study found that those who had been bullied often felt a sense of shame and a lack of compassion as adults. So these effects of bullying from childhood were lasting into adulthood. Another study found that though this study was focused on college students, but it was asking them about experiences of having been bullied in middle or high school. And compared to those who said that they had not been bullied earlier in life, those who had been bullied were more likely to report having gotten drunk recently. So while in college, these students were more likely to smoke than ones who hadn't been bullied as children. and they were even less likely to use condoms than those who had not been bullied in childhood. So that's interesting because compared to those who had not been bullied as kids, college students who were bullied earlier in life seem more likely to take risks and also to not take care of themselves. But unfortunately, bullying continues into adulthood as well. So one cross-cultural study I looked at examined college students in countries in North America, South America, and Europe. And this study examined college students and their experiences of being bullied in college, so not earlier in life. The study found that about 12% of U.S. college students said that they had been bullied by fellow college students, which was a little bit surprising to me. In other countries, it ranged from 5 to 25%. This same study even looked at college students and their reports of being bullied by college student personnel, so professors. And we talked earlier about that power imbalance, so that can certainly come into play here. And I was sad to see that about 9% of U.S. college students reported having been bullied by a professor or other college student personnel. I won't get into this today, but I'll just tell you that there's a whole body of literature on bullying that happens beyond college. So in the world of work, for example, on the job, in the workplace, coworkers sometimes bully one another, bosses bully employees. It doesn't stop, unfortunately. So what are the takeaways that we can learn from some of this research? Well, first of all, I wanted to tell you, I've run through a number of recent research studies here today. I'm not providing a reference list, but if you're interested in reading more about any of these articles or these studies, I can certainly put you in touch with them. And I know I've thrown a lot of numbers at you today, but here I think are some of the most important takeaways. Bullying is common. It doesn't happen to everyone. But it happens to a significant number of us, and it seems to happen about a third of us at some point in our lives, from childhood, adolescence, and even into adulthood. Another really important point, I think, from this research is the bullying that we experience as kids can affect us our entire lives, from childhood through adolescence and into adulthood. Unfortunately, another important point is that bullying continues into adulthood and beyond school. It doesn't just stop at elementary school or middle school or high school or even college. Perhaps the biggest takeaway is that bullying seems to increase our symptoms of mental illness. A number of these studies have indicated that bullies negatively affect their victims by making their victims feel devalued. And so there's a devaluing of the self among victims of bullying. Unfortunately, and it's very sad, but maybe not surprising, a big takeaway from all of this too is the negativity from others can make us not like ourselves and not want to take care of ourselves. And this can happen many years after the bullying incidents have happened. Unfortunately, for those who are bullied, sometimes the words of bullies linger in our heads long after the bully has gone away. So that's just a little bit of research about bullying. I'm Dr. Sanborn. If you have questions about bullying research, if you would like to know more, send me an email. My email address is fwsanborn, FWSANBORN, @ncwc.edu, or stop by my office, which is in Braswell 231.